what's up, you guys? John Mayer here, hanging out with Slash. Nice to have you.
I would be actually Joe Satriani.
Oh, yeah. Marty Schwartz here, hanging out with the awesome Phil McKnight.
Thank you, buddy.
Dude, so nice to be on camera with you.
Especially, more so probably for me, because I've been watching you for years.
I've watched you from the beginning of your thing. You actually reminded me, I gave you a little shout out.
Yeah, you know, you gave a tweet, which that was my very first subscriber bump was from you. I saw the bump, like I was telling you this morning, saw the bump and I was like, whoa, what happened? And then I tracked it down and it was your tweet. You had mentioned one of my videos and that's where it started actually.
Yeah, and when you brought that up, it reminded me what it was. You were talking about maybe like 5 things about a Strat that you might not know.
Yes.
And I definitely didn't know those things. I'm watching your videos because I'm not like super gear nerd.
Right.
Which maybe you would consider yourself a gear nerd.
Yeah, I'm definitely a gear nerd. Yeah.
So I think it's a good match because, you know, I love teaching, I love playing, but, you know, I'm still trying to learn about the gear thing. So I think this is a good little collab. And I'm sure most people know you that are watching my channel, but if not, maybe just describe your channel. We'll leave a link for it. Make sure hopefully we get another boost for you.
Nice. It's always nice to meet new people. Yeah, it's Phil McKnight, but they sometimes know me as the Know Your Gear because that's the thing.
That's your catchphrase?
It's a catchphrase. But either way, what's great is either one of those things takes you to the channel.
Okay, cool. So make sure you guys check it out. It's Gear Nerd Heaven is basically your channel, is what I would say.
Yeah, that's all we talk about 90% of the time.
You were saying from your experience that you can basically grab any guitar and tell you something about it that I wouldn't know. I believe you because I watch your channel.
Right.
But I want to hand you this guitar.
Okay.
And just see what you can do.
All right. So it's funny that I'm doing this. I've never done this on my channel.
Okay.
So this is funny. So think about 600 videos. I've never done this. But a game that my friends and I like to play, I was telling you about, is whenever I go to a music store or at their house or whatever, the game they like to play is, can I tell them something about their guitar that they didn't know? Right?
Right.
And so I say a few things and usually I'll nail something. So this is a made in Mexico Jazzmaster. And it's obviously before the last couple of years because it's rosewood. Now they would have pale ferro. You can't get rosewood on this anymore. So that's what's cool about this. So if you have a made in Mexico guitar with rosewood, what's unique is you have the last one. They won't do this anymore because of CITES, unless the CITES rules retro back. The other thing that's interesting about I was telling you I like the made in Mexico Jazzmaster more than the American one. So some people are going to be typing right now. I love the American one, but there's a couple things I like about the made in Mexico one. The first thing is these pickups are not right. So these are not Jazzmaster pickups. These are a ceramic pickup that they use Jazzmaster covers on. This is actually going to sound more like a P90.
Okay.
So a lot of times when you play the made in Mexico Jazzmaster, if you notice the notes are fuller and bigger because they're less like a single coil Alnico style pickup and more like a ceramic P90. So if you like P90s like in a Gibson, this guitar, the made in Mexico one, will give you more of that vibe.
Okay.
The other thing I like is something that some players, especially nowadays with the custom shops and the relic guitars don't like. This is polyester finish, not polyurethane or lacquer.
Okay.
So what that means is the finish is shinier, like glass. And that's why sometimes when you look at the made in Mexicos, some people don't think they look right. Well, it's because they're too vibrant. These colors are too bright. Everything looks too good. So they use this finish on the made in Mexicos because it's a great finish. It hardens fast. It looks great, but it doesn't look as accurate to how the originals look, where they had that like kind of washed out hue. But I actually like that.
Yeah.
I honestly believe in my heart, if that's a thing you can play, right? Say that if Leo Fender would have stayed with Fender, this would have been the evolution of the American guitar. They would have continued to finishes that harden faster because not only was he looking for the best product all the time, he was also looking for the cheapest way to do it.
Now, what about the difference between this and a Jaguar? Because the body shape's the same, right?
Same. So, and they share some similarities, but they both have some goofy switching that confuses people. Right?
Me.
There's an easy way to remember the switching. Either guitar, with the Jazzmaster or the Jaguar, you got all these switches and stuff. You just got to remember this kind of thing, right? This will help you. This is the main switch you think about. Down, you have these controls. Up, you have these controls.
Okay.
Okay? So regardless of what the controls do, just kind of remember that's what you're doing, right? So down, you have a volume and tone, straightforward, and a three-way switch.
That's what I would do.
Right? Just straightforward. Up, you have a volume and tone, and it turns this pickup off. Because that's why there's no switch up here. You're just stuck in the neck position.
Okay.
So, and the reason why it does that is they use, this is where the nerdiness comes out. They use different capacitors. And what that does is they use ones that cause this guitar to get warmer sounding.
Yeah, jazzy.
Yes, yeah.
Jazzy.
So technically, when you're trying to go for the jazz part of the Jazzmaster, you would switch up.
Okay.
You'll get that neck pickup. A lot of the highs will be taken away from it, sound-wise.
Yeah.
Sounds warmer. The Jaguar essentially works like the same way. There's a switch that does put you in the top controls, turns off the bridge pickup. Every time you're at the top, your bridge pickup's off because you're into that world.
Nice. When I was teaching guitar pre-YouTube, Squiers did not stay in tune for my students, especially those like starter pack guitars. They seem to be better now.
They're very much better.
Much better.
Right.
So I would always tell them, man, if you can find a used Mexican-made Strat for $400, which they've gone up a lot now, then that's what I was always recommending people. What's going on with the Mexican Fender line?
And the idea of what's the new line look like and how does
what's going on? Because had they changed the name or?
Yeah, well, it's time. It's usually the way Fender works, it has always worked, is that when it's like, it's an American iconic brand that sells the same thing for 60 years.
Right.
So how do you entice somebody to get the new thing that's really the old thing, right?
Yeah.
And colors only take you so far. They actually call surf green the $1 million color. This is true. I don't think I'll get in trouble for this. They call it the $1 million color. Right now, somebody in Fender marketing's like, what? No, because it's true.
It is like my favorite color.
Yeah. They call it the $1 million color because whether they stick it on Squiers or a custom shop, they will make $1 million off that guitar because everybody loves surf green, and that's why they only dish it out like sparingly for a little while, right?
Okay.
So it comes out, you notice, like all of a sudden they have it and then they don't have it. The reason that I mentioned that is the same thing. How do you sell another Jazzmaster?
Yeah.
So they will always, I don't want to say repackage, but they're always going to kind of go, hey, look, a new color, and that will help. And then only so many times can you do that before you go, okay, well, a new tuning key assembly and a new, neck profile. And so that's a lot of it too, in reality, because there's a business part of this, right? No matter what we do, there's a business part of this.
Of course.
In reality, what do you do as a company? It's not exclusive Fender, so I don't want to pick on them. What do you do as a company if every product you make is now potentially your competing product? You just said it. I recommend my students, and I do by the way, we're habitually the same in this. A used made in Mexico instrument is the number one go-to. I tell people tour and make a living with those guitars.
Yeah.
So what do you do as a company if every guitar you make is now the guitar you have to compete with in the market? So the fastest easy thing to do is rebrand the name.
Okay.
Because now think about this. You just said it. What's different about it? Well, what if, I'm not saying that's true, but what if nothing was different about the name? So now as a consumer, you're like, well, do I want the standard or do I want the players?
Right, and that's the new Mexican
yes,
name?
Yes.
Yeah.
So sometimes the name, they change some of the specifications, some of maybe upgrade the qualities a little bit. That helps compete in the market, but also they have to compete with themselves. So it's like, how do you, a lot of the made in Mexico improvements were upgraded pickups.
How did Squier get so much better over the years?
See, my honest opinion on Squier is it all has to do with the guy who runs it. His name's Chris. I don't know if he still runs it, but he was the one that took over around 2004 or 5. I remember that specifically because that's all of a sudden you probably identify with this, students, I would never recommend Squiers. I'd always like, no, please, you know what I mean? Just used, Fender, made in Mexico, anything, right? Get an Ibanez, whatever it is over a Squier. And then all of a sudden you start noticing, like, I remember the first time after 10 years of playing, horrible ones, you pick one up and you're like, hey, this is legit. I think the drive at Fender at that time was they saw what Epiphone had done.
Yeah. Because
Epiphone had definitely figured it out way before Squier did, that there are people out there who want a Les Paul and not going to shove out $3,000.
Right.
And for $500, this is legitimate playing in a bar, instrument. And that's where I think the upgrades from Squier came from. Is that's where it started. Let's upgrade the line. Before that, I think, believe it or not, my personal opinion was Fender just didn't want it to perform. They didn't want it to compete with Fender. There was a fear there. And I think that's legitimate.
Yeah, because everyone's looking for, especially there's more entry-level people than anyone else, and they want the cheapest guitar because they don't even know if guitar is going to be for them.
And you know what's great about this? I think what Epiphone had figured out was, instead of thinking is this inexpensive guitar going to compete with my high-end guitar, am I giving the first-time user the best experience of my brand? And I think that's what these guys figured out, because they started noticing, hey, the guitar teachers, we're not even a thought in their head when they recommend brands to students.
Yeah.
So I think
Good
that's
point. Well, anyway, dude, thank you so much. That was like super awesome nerd deep dive, and I learned a lot, as I do from your videos. Please check out his channel. I'm gonna leave links below. All gear, all the time, plus other insights. I watch it myself, and I think you'll dig it if you don't already know him. Thanks again, and we'll see you guys later.